We have to start our discussions. Stephen Atubiga of the NDC is in the studio. Of the NDC.
NDC.
Yes. How was your weekend?
Wonderful.
I see you're enjoying yourself.
Well,
I love your dress.
I can't complain. We patronizing Made in Ghana. We promoting Made in Ghana.
How can you complain? You're a member of the NDC. How can you complain?
It's glad to be alive.
All right. So you're glad
to be alive.
All right.
Yes.
And we have Rodaline Imoro Ayana, the second vice chairperson of the CPP, in the studio. Thanks for joining me. As beautiful as ever. How was your weekend?
Up and down.
Up and down.
No cruel and the rest. Otherwise, we just thank God for His little mercies.
Right. You know, the good thing these days is I don't even have to introduce the topics to my guests, because they know it outright, because they live it. They are living experiences of it.
Yes, this shows that communication is flowing between the people of Ghana and government of the day.
Mr. Atibuga, we're in terrible times.
No, we're not.
The MPA says that no immediate hike in fuel prices, even though we have chaos, and we've had chaos at various fuel or filling stations over the last couple of days.
Yes.
And well, that followed consistent warnings by the bulk distribution companies 2 weeks before we had the shortages.
Yes.
Your government didn't do anything about it.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, when the shortages started trickling in, or the experiences were being had, then the president said, well, he'd order the finance minister or whoever to release some monies to the bulk distribution companies.
Yes. Yes.
That's the way to go?
Yes, thank you very much. I want to say good morning to the viewers and listeners out there. As a matter of fact, this is an issue that we should not make it look like partisan. You know, the BDC.
You mean the question I asked is partisan?
No, yeah, I'm saying we shouldn't look. I know out there people are blaming NDC, NDC. BDC, these are private institutions that brings in the fuel. Now, what the people are not telling Ghanaians is, let's say they go to buy the fuel, let's say it's $3, all right, and it's $4. Then government intervenes and take, you know what, I'll absorb this amount of money. Instead of them reporting to government when they bring it, like that intervention that government does, subsidy has been, it's been withdrawn, but there are other
components.
Yes, that government pays, and that is what has accumulated up to now. It is not that it is government, but what is happening when they make that profit, they don't tell Ghanaians that we have made this much profit, or report to government that we have made this much money. I'm talking about the BDCs. So the government will say, okay, pay this amount of tax, so that when you go to buy the fuel and it's to bring it into the country and it exceeds certain amount and government has to intervene or absorb that amount of money, you know what I'm saying, right? That is what that has accumulated up to date. So there's a blame on the BDC. So we shouldn't look at it. It is government that has refused to pay for fuel not being into the country. And we should not also forget that when it comes to, some of us are saying government should leave it a free hand, sort of absorb, so that we won't have these problems. When the BDCs are bringing, when they go to buy the fuel, they know very well that even if it is $5.
There isn't the issue of subsidies.
Yes, the issue of subsidies. No, you see, it's not subsidy.
It's not direct subsidy.
Yes,
I do understand
it's
what
an
you're saying.
intervention that government subsidized for the BDCs to be able to bring the fuel so that you and I will enjoy it. Because the subsidy, it is the rich that benefits mostly. If you see, this is a topic by itself that we could analyze it. It is those using the V8s and then the 12 cylinders and whatever, because somebody sitting in...
How many of them?
Let me give an example.
We have no excuse.
There's an excuse.
You know, do you think that the trajectory of the communication these days from you, the spokespeople of government, is the best way to go?
No, I think the BDCs, I mean, they failed in terms of why allow it to accumulate up to certain level before you tell government that, look, we cannot pay. Because the program is there for you, that when you bring such amount of fuel into the country and you know government tells if it don't exceed this amount of, because it's going to fall back onto me and you. Why haven't they reported to or channeled it through the Ministry of Energy to say, hey, this at this stage, this is their fault, because government is doing well by saying we intervene, or this is the subsidy that we're doing to help so that it doesn't transcend back to the average Ghanaian of the fuel being at a certain price. So we shouldn't blame government.
Shifting the goalpost, you think that's what he's doing?
I really don't. I'd like to say good morning to Ghanaians. My brother has just confused me.
Okay.
I am not quite clear as to whether government, because of taxations and other duties put on the oil, is the case that we're having the shortage.
That wasn't what
No, from the angle that you're coming, you're trying to say that the bulk buying agencies did not inform government that there was supposed to be a deficit of some sort, and therefore government should make the payment.
Thank you.
Okay, now what I want to ask is, in a country where there is a Ministry of Energy, in a country where we know that we do need petrol or diesel or fuel to move, and we wait till the last days, does it mean that government doesn't have any form of surveillance on how we use our fuel? But it's the same government that will come and tell us that we have fuel left for 2 weeks. So if government knows that we have fuel left for 2 weeks, then it means that government would definitely know when there's not going to be any fuel. And the reasons are that the bulk agencies are saying you have not paid us some monies, and therefore we expect you to pay us the monies. The whole issue is this: government has not been prudent in its spending when it comes maybe to fuel. In your admittance of V8s and things, who are the majority of people who use V8s in this country? It's state officials. We are still importing huge, fuel gasless, like the V8s and all those Land Cruisers. What do you think they consume? They consume fuel. So at the end of the day, I think that government did not do its work well. I think it didn't. It did not. It did not supervise.
Can I make a correction little quick?
You have your point, sir.
Okay.
So I just believe that the fuel crisis that we've had is just one of the many other we are having. It's just one of the other many issues.
We're having.
Well, they're saying that people are offloading fuel. As I was coming, I saw some tankers offloading fuel. But then it just goes to show the type of country that we are running. We do knee-jerk reaction. We wait till the problem comes and then we come out to solve it, which is not working well for this country.
Prior to the shortage, do you think that perhaps we should have been more proactive than we were?
Yes, we should have.
Considering the fact that the BDC's its chief executive had been on air.
He had said it, and I listened and I filled my tank. I kept filling my tank as I went along. I didn't have any problems with fuel. I, as an individual, heard him loud and clear that within 2 weeks we were not going to have fuel if government did not come forward with any funding. And I, as an individual, went out and I was able to get fuel for myself. And I'm saying that if government was up and doing and being proactive, we wouldn't have gotten to where we are now.
I would like to make there was the shortage, not that there wasn't fuel in the country.
No.
My brother, let's be. We are talking to Ghana.
No, we know.
We had.
They have 2 weeks reserves, they said.
Thank
they have
you.
2 weeks.
Thank you.
The BDC themselves said they had 2 weeks, but they were not going to release to the oil marketing companies until 1.8 billion Ghana cedis, of which they owed.
Thank you. Which government released?
And we paid 60, paltry 60.
Well,
60
in addition, also we have letters of credit, etc., for which these BDCs can use to go and access funding from banks, etc., also released by government. So all in sum,
was that before
excess
or
of 400?
Yes.
Excess of 400 million Ghana
out of 1 billion. 1 point something billion.
So government is trying, right?
Yeah, government has done. I think I recommend government for what they've done. I think we have to applaud them. I mean, government for.
How do we make sure we don't get into a situation like this?
So that is where right now I think they are restructuring the communication system between the BDCs and the.
What communication again?
When I mean in terms of let's say company.
The BDC gentleman had been on air, had also been in direct consultation with the Minister of Finance and Minister of Energy, and consistently also had said that if these actions were taken, the actions that were taken by the President, if they were taken 2 weeks ago, we wouldn't have been in the current situation.
That is true.
You do understand
I agree that, but if the BDCs, if they had also done their homework, I want a BDC company coming out to say, we channeled government maybe 2-3 weeks, I'm saying even a month ago, that if we don't get this amount of money, our fuel will be locked down. We have 18 of them in Ghana, if I'm not mistaken. I want any of them to come out and say, we put our analysis together, our financial constraint together. We told government that we needed this a month ago. So if they wait You know what I'm saying? If they wait and it happens, so we shouldn't be blaming only government. Are you getting me? GMPC is only there to monitor in terms of their price and make sure that but interfering in where they get their fuel, how much. You get what I'm saying? So they have to also have a responsibility.
I don't think that all of a sudden the BDCs 2 weeks before there's a shutdown will just all of a sudden come without any prior consultation.
No,
come in. They will only come on air or go public when they're harder. They see that nobody's listening.
That is true. But are you getting? I'm saying I'm challenging any BDC to come out that maybe a month or 2 months ago, because the ship doesn't just move like a Ferrari straight vroom and land at the port. It takes.
Mr. Tufika, that's belittling the matter, is that not it?
No, what I'm saying is there is a gap between the BDC.
Some level of miscommunication.
Yes, so I think that gap should be closed, and we wouldn't have. And this is not even. Look, I have. It happens even in the advanced countries. If you go to places like in the States, there's nothing like the intervention that government is doing when it comes to their fuel or what. It's private entity. You see, we want government to remove all that. If it's $4, absorbing all that. Use that to build roads. Use that to do certain things, so that by so doing, we won't have these problems. So that
you're saying we need to pay realistic prices.
Yes, yes. So that government.
In the current milieu of the difficulties we're having, we need to pay realistic prices.
No, I'm saying that people will no more be sitting there going to cut deals and expecting that if government doesn't give us money, we will not make provisions for the fuel to be released, or people will lack the fuel that, so that look, rice and sugar and all what have you, they are also essential commodities that also needs intervention from government, because they import them, not only fuel. So the point I'm trying to make is there has to be at a point we have to let certain things go. Government has to leave a free hand and say bring and only.
We have to move on to the next subject. How do you think productivity has been affected?
I was just going to come to that. We are making it look as if the fuel wasn't there and that's the end of story. So many things went wrong. Taxi drivers lost their earnings. Market women lost their earnings. People couldn't move. Productivity went low. And that by itself is affecting governance in this country. It's affecting the economy. Already, we're in bad times. Already, we cannot afford to pay for utility bills. Already, we cannot afford to buy food in the market. Today,
who can't afford
everybody,
to pay?
every single Ghanaian, I don't know about NDC members, but for the rest of us in this country, we cannot afford it. What I'm trying to say is that if a Ghanaian is earning 6 Ghana cedis a day for minimum wage, and out of that you buy a loaf of bread for 4 cedis and 50 pesos, you're left with 1 cedi, 50 pesos. Now, this alone tells you that there are so many people in this country who are sleeping hungry, that there are so many people in this country who need, good governance and good leadership. Excuse me. So we cannot just sit back and say that because people did not inform, then that was why the shortage came. There was somebody there whose duty it was to make sure that all these monies go. When I say that I am going to take a subsidy, it means that I am ready to pay that subsidy. It means that there is an officer in charge of managing that subsidy. And therefore, when it's time, you pay. When you take a loan, you do know when it's time to pay up. You don't wait for the bank to come and tell you to pay up. And therefore, if government owns marketing agencies, oil marketing agencies, government must pay up and pay up on time, because it's the fuel that moves this country and it moves industry. So I don't see why we should belittle it and make it look as if the bulk agencies were the people to blame. We should be blaming the government for not being proactive.
I have the man himself on the line. Senor Jose is the CEO of the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distribution Companies. And a very good morning to you, Mr. Jose. Now, I have heard you the last couple of days speaking on other media platforms, if not on Newsfile, particularly concerning this very current shortages we're experiencing. Now, the first question as a consumer I would want to ask you, have we started witnessing the carting or transportation of oil to the pumps?
Yes, on Saturday and Sunday, we have moved a total of 9 million liters to the market, and I think we've tried to publish a number of the stations out there which we have said. And from my observation last night, I actually went around to inspect a few stations that we call 7 to ensure there was no audit. And significantly, the challenge seems to be subsiding, and I believe by Wednesday we should have a very normal situation as far as fuel supply is concerned.
The concern from the ordinary Ghanaian is that, well, you are members of BDCs, you're members of the chamber, you are heads of the chamber, etc. Because you're not going through frustrations of fuel shortages, so it's very easy for you to just cut off supplies, just because you have all these difficulties.
Let me take advantage of this to really correct something. We never cut off supply. We never cut off supply that voluntarily. No, that's very wrong. What happened was that the funding that we required from the bank and also from the international banks, who would have to confirm local banks' letters of credit, that was scaled back and withdrawn in some instances. And to that extent, we're not able to acquire or procure products. Most of the products that were available were under financial hold, i.e. the supplier sends it down, but appoints a collateral manager like SGS or like Inspectorate, telling them, you know, till these guys issue my payment, you cannot release the cargo to them. In simple terms, that's what really happened. And the banks were failing to really fund us because of the level of indebtedness we had to them. And also the lack of clarity of government's willingness and commitment to paying down debt as subsidies continue to grow. Okay, and those were the things that needed to be addressed, and I believe clear actions and decisions were taken, and we were able to see some improvement in the situation. I must commend my BDCs really for being very committed, because the LCs came out late. We just had only 2 LCs. The one from Fidelity Bank coming in very late on Friday night after the payment, and then subsequently had an an orthodox trade transaction for another one to have access. But all these products were priced into a July window. The July window versus this window implies a $48 loss if you sell in this window. But the BDCs rose above their commercial interest, came together and decided to spread their loss risk across board, and managed to swap some products with each other, lend some of the products to each other, so we could sell out of more terminals at the same time, and then flood the market and help cover the deficit. You know, we worked tirelessly over Saturday and Sunday. I would really want to say kudos to most of the depot staff at TTF and also at EFC, and also as well as Tor, who joined us yesterday, you know, to help us distribute our products out there. You know, they worked deep and late into the night. We're all out there trying to coordinate stuff, and it's all towards the service of Mother Ghana. I hope things will subside, and I encourage people not to indulge in panic buying, because I think the situation largely has stabilized.
Well, if you worked overtime, that's good. That's good overtime also allowance for you. I mean, that's just on the outside.
Nothing for that. I'm sorry.
but you seem to have been very much impressed with the intervention made by the president following the release of.
Yes. I must commend the president, the chief of staff, and Dr. Nashiru Isaku, the second deputy governor of the Bank of Ghana. Their leadership, their commitment, and to resolving this thing actually brought this entire catastrophe, if I should say, to some closure. You know. And
do you think
their work, you know, went very late into the night, you know, to help us resolve this matter? That was Thursday into Friday, and I was impressed by the commitment of the president, and I think it should be appropriately acknowledged.
Well, we do understand, the commendation or the praise singing you're giving to the president. Do you think this was preventable?
I believe so. I believe it was, and I believe that various government officials and appointees of the president, you know, if maybe they had been more proactive, because we had notified them of a potential crisis way over a month ago, and we've been discussing this for well over 3 months ago. We raised this 6 months ago, that progressively we're grinding to a halt. Last month, we sent a very clear crisis alert, and I'm not too sure to what extent that this was reacted to, because the steps and actions taken could have been taken probably some 2 weeks ago. And honestly, it wouldn't even have needed that much money to really re-establish funding confidence from the banking sector. But I don't know. I just don't know. Quite disappointing. I must be honest with you. Quite disappointing.
Who do you blame for it? The Minister of Finance, the Minister of Energy, who?
I don't intend to run a blame game. I think that the appointees know themselves, and they have the state and the president to stand.
Well, we're consumers. We put them there in that very office. We don't know who did what. And since you are dealing with them, you should be in a position to tell us.
I don't intend to engage in that discourse. So
now, do you maintain a strong communication with the various agencies that you work with, vis-a-vis appointees, the various outfits, to make sure that, well, if you gave all those alerts and indications, at least you will be adequately listened to, and then they'll get to know the enormity of the challenges you're facing?
My brother, I'm on the floor of every single key government agency related to my business every day. There's nothing extra new they need to know at any point in time. Okay. We just have to be doers in this economy. We have one country, irrespective of any political, bias that anybody may have. We still have one Ghana, and the common good must be sought at any given point in time. Well, it's no joke, and it's not time for games. You must take it serious and not run this economy to a halt by our actions or inactions, when it has to do with fuel.
Well, we have to let you go. But the last question, productivity has been affected.
I do agree with you, absolutely. And it has an economic cost. And that's why people who are paid by the taxpayer should factor that in their thinking. When you're taking every action, what's the implication of it? What is the potential? We should stop being crisis managers, and rather be productivity enhancers, and crisis averters. You just don't just focus more on managing crisis. We don't need to act and do the things we have to do only when there's a crisis. Then the president has to come in. It's just wrong.
I can feel your pain. You are saying somebody was irresponsible, right?
Needless to say, it's for the listeners and yourself to make your own judgment.
Okay, draw your own conclusions. So thank you very much, Senor Hosi, the CEO of the Chamber of Bulk Distribution Companies in Ghana. I would say thank you very much and putting a lot more insight and smiles on the face of many Ghanaians, because everybody uses some level of transport or the other. Okay, so we're drawing conclusions on this very subject. Your last word.
Yes, my last word is he's given us the postmortem of the real situation.
Well, he's praised the president, but he says his appointees are bad. That's what he said.
Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying, that we've heard a postmortem that has been put out there based on the situation that happened during the weekend. He's been able to tell Ghanaians how swiftly the president moving to make, and the chief of staff make the availability of the funds available for us. And then, just as he's saying, we should take a cue of this and make sure that it doesn't happen again. And besides that, changes or whatever, changes have been made that it will not happen again. But to me, running a country, once in a while, you go through certain crises, you go through certain changes.
This is once, eh? We've been going through a series of crises.
Yes, from which one to which one, my brother? It's parts and parts. But what I'm saying,
let me not mention the litany of crisis.
Food, rice, and other stuff. Also, we are all looking at oil.
That's all right, sir.
Okay.
We draw your conclusion now, Rodley. If you have a good coach but his players are bad, they don't get to win tournaments. Vis-a-vis, if you have good players, a bad coach, tactically they will not be good. I agree
totally with Mr. Senor. That there are some non-performing ministers. Some non-performing.
Not most.
Oh, no. Well, we can even say most of them, because you can count the few that are really working.
I was just asking, I'm not saying...
Yeah. You can even say most, because you can... I was trying to be very diplomatic by saying some. Or some of them are working, some too we can't say are working. But then we should start getting worried when the president always has to intervene. Why are the ministers?
It means he's a good president.
No. It means
he makes things happen.
No. You, as a leader, you must be able to delegate to the people. You have appointed people. Let them work. Do you expect your CEO to come and answer for everything that you should be saying? Then we don't need you. Why should it be the president always, I mean, for God knows how many times, he's always the one who intervenes on behalf of his ministers, on behalf of his district chief executives. It's not right. It isn't right. A president must be the last resort for us to go to. And therefore, if at every given time, look, we just came up from football. He's the one who's answering the questions.
The president?
Yes, defending the 3 million. Why?
3 million what?
$3 million that were flown.
Ah, okay, okay.
Why? I mean, we don't expect that. He is president and he should play his part. He has seen people that he believes can work, can deliver. He's appointed them. If they are not delivering, the next thing to do is to sack them. And not let's keep them and then keep paying them for nothing, for no job done.
Okay, Stephen, there's an issue about usage of public funds and adequate management of expenditure of state institutions. The MPA, the minority, raised an issue about their rent following all that was raised in the report. And following that, committee was constituted, and we're told that the Chief of Staff says, well, the MPA should make sure they don't pay that rent of $63,000 a month again. But in any case, the committee also has been dissolved, and the minority is not too happy about it. I don't know whether you know about the latest on the subject.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much. You see, if you look at the way the MPA operates, you understand that if a contract is being written, no government, nobody can just wake up one day and say, I'm terminating the contract. But
we have managers in those institutions.
But
they should make sure that the contract
that is true. If government sets up a committee to look at this issue and finds out that, I'm giving an example, we don't need a rocket scientist to tell us that a contract is a contract that you've agreed that you pay the rent up to this much. So if the Chief of Staff thinks that, you know what, whatever the committee report they will bring, at the end of the day, it's a contract that has been signed. Instead of wasting you and I tax money again, sort of sitting somewhere, all that, wasting time, the Chief of Staff took a very wisely, decisive, good decision in the interest of the nation by saying, I'm dissolving this committee. Make sure that you don't renew the rent when it's due, and end of story. And we move on to other issues, because that is where if they say don't pay, pack out, government has an office for you, go and move it. That's where we start having judgment debts. That's why we start having people taking government or government of the day to the cleaners. So the right thing, I think that's the right direction. I am really proud of him. He has really proved to somebody like me that yes, he's really the Chief of Staff when the needs arises for him to invoke his powers in the interest of the nation. And I think it's a very good decision. And I hope and I also know that that institution, he didn't just he sat down with them. Are we able to terminate the contract? Were there loopholes that we could compensate, let's say 2 months rent and walk away? Was it month to month, or it was a 1 year lock rent? All those decisions were being put in place, and I believe that is the best decision the Chief of Staff took. I understand the dilemma of the minority, but if they do more surgical operation on the contract, they will get to understand that yes, the Chief of Staff did what he had to do in the interest of the nation.
But the point is, the MPs, well, silently, the majority, they won't tell you, and publicly, but silently, I mean, they also had concerns with how much was being raised as rent, a contractual issue, of course, but especially with where the building was sited, East Legon, we know it's an upper class place, and it will be expensive, but to that tune, it calls into question prudent use of state resources.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And I'm not surprised that the minority is raising issues. We had the Techi issue during the MPP time, Techi House. You know, I think it also housed another energy ministry or something, and they also paid such huge sums of monies, enough to build equally a good office.
That's an aggregation of all the rent.
That's it. And you look at this one and it's the same, and you ask yourself, is it because the money is not coming from their pockets and it's taxpayers' money? They don't even think. In the first instance, let's ask, who has the right to go into those contracts? Contracts of such nature. The second thing, we are all in this country, we've now decided we're not talking dollars, we're talking cedis. So how come we're getting $63,000?
I'm sure this one was entered to before.
If it was entered to before, it should have been changed by now. Letters should have gone out to say, look, we did enter into this, come back to the table, let's renegotiate, and we're going to pay you in cedis. And then the other thing that I don't understand is why there are so many empty, if you drive around this country or in Accra, we have very big, nice government state houses, I think. We could use them. Why do we always have to give such monies out? A lot of the time, Roland, when you check, you would find that the building belongs to someone that is close to either. Yes, possibly.
You're speculating.
I'm
now.
speculating. I said when you
That's
go
speculation.
in, it's speculation. That's what I'm saying. But if you want, go and look. You can go and find out who owns that building.
And try to do the connection.
That's it. You try to do the connection as to how come they took that building. Because sometimes you ask yourself, even why do you have MPA in East Legon and not somewhere else? Or why do you have this one here and not somewhere else? You understand what I'm saying? A lot of the times, these buildings, somebody just sits there, built his house, and then decides that I have connection, let's go and get it, and you can take it for an office.
Stephen is smiling.
Yes, Stephen will smile. Stephen will smile.
You're saying that what you're saying is not true.
It's not true, but I'm saying that you go out there and do your checks. You understand? In the same way, let me tell you something. We are in this country. When you go to the northern part of this country, tell me how many cars are on our roads. How many, if not motorcycles and bicycles? Stephen, tell me how many filling stations we have between Boko, Widana, Pusiga, and the rest. How many filling stations we have? You understand? So many filling stations. And then you ask yourself, what are those filling stations being kept there for? Who owns those filling stations? Go and make your own research as to who owns those filling stations. And what is it there for? Smuggling of fuel across the border. You understand what I'm saying? Let us be honest. Let us speak out as Ghanaians. Let's be patriotic. And who are those who own the tankers that bring in the fuel from Tema to those areas? Let us find out. It's as simple as that. When we are speaking, let's be patriotic, let's be nationalistic. These are some of the things. Times are hard and people are cutting corners. If you know of somebody who has a building and you can make a cut and you are in a position to take that building as an office, you go ahead and do so and take your cut.
You're saying that is what is happening,
that
or
is
you suspect?
That is what has been happening. That's what I suspect has been happening. And I'm saying that we have to speak about it. Let's be honest with it. Let's not hide. It's not fair. Let's not hide. Ghanaians are suffering. Some people don't seem to be suffering because they are living at the back of Ghanaians. That's all there is to it. I am not the first person to say, look at the background of the people who own those buildings. You go out and do your own research. Let's find out who owns those buildings. Go out and find out.
My brother, if you go to that building, that building at East Legon, I have been there. Strategically, it's a good location for that class of business. I mean, taking care of or monitoring the oil of a kind is not like monitoring Banku and Kenke. You have all works of people that come in there, and if you look at them, it deserves that environment.
That's our problem.
And if you also look at the demarcation of people having their offices doing what they're supposed to do,
You've been to the new place?
Yes. Is the price outrageous? Yes. As a Ghanaian, I know that's a lot of money.
You agree 63,000 is outrageous price?
Yes, I buy that. But the building,
a month.
Yes, the building is worth that money if anybody can afford it. But taxpayers' money as Ghana, no. I mean, you don't need to give somebody.
Okay. Let me ask you from what. Let me ask you to draw a conclusion.
Okay.
Would have a private firm?
Yes.
Be in a position to rent if they wanted to?
Yes.
Would they have rented it at that rate?
Oh, there are
$63,000 a month.
What I'm trying to explain: people are renting houses in Ghana here.
Well, I do
Ghanaians, $15,000, $10,000, $5,000 a month. Now that building, I can tell you that 5, 6, or 7 BDC companies can easily pull that money. And if you go and look at the building, the number of floors, the way it's being set up, and the type of business that they do,
Did they need that?
It's just not. My sister.
Did they need it?
My sister.
That's the first question.
It's just like saying that.
Because in a year.
Yes.
In a year.
Yes.
You pay $756,000.
Yes. It sounds. It's big money from you and I.
No,
but
no,
these
I'm not saying that. For me, it's more than big money. I'm not saying that.
Yes.
But going by the current rates, that's $2.268 million. Ghana cedis.
Ghana cedis.
Yes. That is what I'm saying. That look at the
A
time.
year,
Yes.
12 months.
How
My
much
brother.
are they earning for the country from that office?
My brother.
2.268 million Ghana cedis.
My brother, we're talking about oil, business,
Okay.
you and I's money.
But we're talking about prudent use of state resources.
That is what I'm saying. That's why I justify that the amount of money being used for you and I taxpayers' money is a lot of money. That money could have built, I know in Binduri, it could have made some roads. It could have given boreholes to certain areas of Binduri. But that building is worth that much. That's what I'm trying to say. Let's say BDCs, 4 of them can take it. You and I, my mother will bear, or my sister will bear in mind with me that people are paying even $20,000 a month in Ghana here for accommodation.
Because the taxpayer is not doing the job.
Okay,
I mean, the taxman is not doing the right
so
thing.
if you look at it in government, yes, it's a lot of money, it's big money, but it's not it's not a big deal to me. If you look at that building, it's worth that much money, you know, if you compare to commercial to generate, because if they are not generating income, they're not just gonna be throwing that money down the drain every month. So I think, yes, when it comes to government institutions, I don't think they should be paying rent at all. Government should award contracts for people to build or to construct a permanent.
So you're
spot
saying
for
that
them.
MPA needs a permanent.
Yes, they need a permanent place, and
Brother,
I
you also
believe it's
agree?
I
yes.
agree that they need a permanent
Well, there's
place.
one that's coming. There's Scandal newspaper. It
Boss.
says it's working for Ghana. It says Boss apparently has also entered into another contract to pay $40,000, and actually they've already paid. They're yet to move into the building, but
Cannot
they've
complete
paid $480,000 already, 1 year rent. What do you call this one? To Boss. Boss is also a public agency.
Look at how many staff they will have. Just as if you go over there.
So you're talking. As for you, when the institution is oil, no, they should just
No,
spend.
I'm not justified, but I'm saying if you look at that sector, you know, I'll be surprised.
Because it's a money generating sector.
Thank you.
It's a
And
highly capital intensive
thank you.
industry.
Thank you. And
So they
it's-
can
and-
spend
Yes, and
public money.
And I don't know the criteria of whether it's environment, location, how the office should look like. It is part and parcel of when you're setting up that type of something that has to do with that institution. It's just like building. You cannot take a chamber and hall and say it's a hospital. You know, I mean, where are you going to keep your patient? So all is parts and parcel of it. So I think, yes, they've gone to spend that money, and that's why the chief of staff, they are looking into all these issues. They have their board members will look at it with the board chairman, the executives, they will all sit down. And I believe that we'll have solutions or justification will be put out there. Was it at the time they needed it? Was it necessary? Let's also think about the time you needed that accommodation or that offices. Were there other opportunity cost available? Was that the basic? Was that the only spot that was accessible for government to use? So sometimes certain decisions are taken at the moment, but as time goes on, you realize that certain decisions can be made, and I believe that you know, solutions will be taken, and this wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen again.
I think this is one of those 40,000 a month for office space. I'm just hoping that the tax officers did their job, and that whatever monies they collected, they paid taxes on them.
Okay. So now, what should be the way forward as far as
Because
state
from what we are
institutions
being told,
to make sure that we have prudent management of resources of whatever they generate or allocated to them?
Roland.
Do we need proper auditing then?
Yes, Roland.
Because the auditing are done,
Roland.
I'm sure, by the Auditor General's area.
This
Or the
building,
Auditor General's department.
this Boss building in question is uncompleted. The person has been advanced the money to complete it. You understand? And then you ask yourself,
In whose interest?
in whose interest? You have your building, you haven't finished the building, and then I have to give you the money to finish the building. Is that the only building that was available that could take them? When you look at the agreement for the MPA building, they are now saying that, oh, the place is big, so they are now going to sublet. And in subletting, yeah, they're going to sublet portions of it, which will then justify the 63. And you ask yourself, did you need the whole thing? That was my question. Did you need the whole building? It was too big, so you don't go for it. You go for one that you know you would need. But now you've gotten it and you are going to sublet it. Then this one comes and it's uncompleted. And I can assure you that there are so many other state agencies that are paying these kinds of monies. And when you're talking of auditing, it's just that we must sit down as a country, just for once, look at ourselves and decide what is best for this country. The fact that you're in oil business or you're in any type of lucrative business does not mean that you should just spend government money anyhow. Your office doesn't have to be so plush as if it's in Park Lane or somewhere. No, we are a third world country. We have to live within our means. And the problem we are having is that we keep comparing ourselves to the United States of America, to the UK, and to Germany, and yet we forget that they are well ahead of us, far advanced. It took sacrifices for them to get there. And for a social democratic party like the NDC, they should understand it more. They should understand it more, that they don't have to spend so much.
What do we need to do?
What we're supposed to do is what the chief of staff has done. He's put his foot down.
Well,
and I
that's
believe,
just for one institution.
Yeah,
I mean, overall, what do we need to do to make
across
sure?
all the institutions. And I believe that when they take such decisions, I believe it will be tabled to the chief of staff or certain arm of government would take the final decision before such spending is being made. And I want to make correction to my sister that the fuel stations in Boko cut across to Binduri are people that have, some of them are cattle dealers that have worked so hard to go into that sector. There are contractors and Ghanaians and, you know, so that have opened that honestly. There are a lot of cars within the north, I mean within Boko Binduri area, especially those that are traders from, you know, motorbikes, you know. So until you know that this is, look,
that's why I'm saying that do your research. I have done my research.
It
I
cuts
have
all
done my
across.
research,
Those,
and I have found that
those filling
we don't want
stations,
to,
those filling stations
I don't want to
are,
sit here to
are
mention
for
names or anything.
that have worked so
Of
hard.
course they are Ghanaians,
But
we are all Ghanaians.
just as this fuel in Ghana here,
Well,
I mean,
Ghanaians.
when
But when
people started
somebody
trooping with gallons in the station, you saw older women even buying, and they were selling the gallon for 80 cedis. They were selling for 100 Ghana and what have you. Should we call? Is it not the same as somebody filling his tank and driving across to Togo and, you know, selling 2-3 gallons and coming back going?
Is that a good thing?
Well, but don't try to blame people doing good in life. People work so hard to get what they want.
If you work hard,
can we
I
justify?
have no problems. I have no problems with people earning their money the right way. But then I have a duty as a Ghanaian. When I do know somebody who, until maybe a year or two ago, okay, was having a motorbike, and today the person can claim to have 2-3 tankers, from where? It's a magic. You win a lottery?
No, for that, I disagree people's progress in life. For that,
I don't mind people progressing.
It's like multimedia. We have a lot of TV stations, but
we know what
there's a difference. Are we going to say special treatment has been given to
we know
multimedia?
What is happening.
The owner of multimedia worked so hard to get to this level. He was very creative, having others. So I think
not in 3 years.
Not in 3 years and not in 2.
Now,
when ministers have built houses in 6 months,
don't worry,
and
don't
stuff
worry.
like
I
that.
see your sense. I see this morning.
Because we do not want people to not tell the truth. Tell the truth to Ghanaians,
Steven,
because Ghanaians are suffering.
Roland says very often we're very economical with the truth, especially when it's got to do with statements that would indict our parties or our governments.
Yes. I don't know what she defines as that, but I believe that the fingers are not equal. Even in here, people are being paid more than others. Not that they're smarter or they're intelligent than them, but that is the world of business.
Okay, Ghana's outlook negative. According to Moody, it's a rating agency. They're saying that we're not doing too well as far as they were concerned. And I mean, economically, as far as the business is concerned, if you're rated downwards negatively, it affects your ability to be able to borrow.
Yes.
At a certain interest rate, so to speak.
That is true.
Okay.
What I'm trying, yes, I get that, but we should not forget.
And they still give a negative outlook even for the close of the year.
Yes.
But we have government ministers and who go around saying that by the end of the year things will be fine.
My brother.
Our per capita income is not good. Our balance of trade, extreme deficit, external debt ratio, huge. These are serious issues.
My brother, what we're reading right now is a topic by itself that we could sit here and digest it.
Everything
but I can summarize.
We're discussing this in 5 minutes.
Yes,
Steven.
yes. What I'm trying to explain is that yes, it's good. Somebody will sit down and analyze and justify and put whatever is wrong with this country on paper. But on the reality, we know that yes, it's not only Ghana. From even other countries' economy have shut down before. Show me a country in the world that is not going through crisis or hasn't gone through crisis to come out. But we have to appreciate that we have a government.
So we need to be optimistic.
Yes, I agree that there's economic hardship. There's a lot going on. So as we have to also praise that what is the government, we should look at what the government of the day is doing to make sure that these, the standard of living is good. We are able to sustain the single span. We are able to send infrastructure and basic needs to the people out there. We are able to do intervention programs and pay the people that government has contracted to do all those. I'm talking about the school feeding, the free education, free uniforms,
they haven't been paid.
Free. That is the statement I made. I haven't said. I'm making I'm not being political. Let's look at how government is able to take the basic. A woman shouldn't die of giving birth. It should be a no-no. Or run out of blood. They should have basic, and just look at what government is also doing in terms of cutting back expenditure. If you look at our president, no more hampers. Okay, if you look at the cutback of the pay and his ministers, the number of cheap compounds is building. Look at the intervention that the president has. I mean, these are the things that, are we going through hardship? Yes. Is the government doing what it's supposed to do? Yes, the government is doing. You see, the single span, for instance, sustaining it. And yes, I understand that our debt to income ratio for us to borrow. Are you getting me? But we, the citizenry, we also have a responsibility of making sure that the taxpayers, I'll give you an example, the contractor, there are some odd jobs that, how is government being able or will find ways and means to tax all those, like the construction workers and what have you. If you look at all countries, they are paying taxes. If you are a contractor, they deduct tax from you. But what is on record to show that Mr. A has come to carry concrete at your site, he's been deducted this amount of money. You've paid social security for that person, so that when he's moving to the next contractor to be a laborer, he's going with a social security that you be. So let's look at all those. Government will generate more income.
They're doing the work.
So let's
member of government's communication team.
So let's look at all that. Look at the loopholes.
Is it the NDC's communication team? Which one?
Both.
Okay.
And an activist for the party.
An activist for the party.
And look at the amount of money that government raised.
Stephen,
the tax
please.
And okay, the tax force.
Let's Rodalin say something also.
Okay, that's fine.
Now, Rodalin, specifically when it comes to all the interventions, consistently we're told government is undertaking to make sure the current difficulties perhaps are reduced as far as the burden is by the close of the year. There's been the criticism that we still have not seen the plan. We still have not been given a certain strategy by which we have certain timelines at which we'll get out of what or would have achieved certain things by this date.
Roland, don't look for timelines. Doomsaw is supposed to have ended November 2013.
No, we're not talking Doomsaw.
I'm only telling you timelines. We don't deal with timelines in this country. We don't. We don't know when we are going to get out of these problems. And when you look at the downgrading of our whatever
by Moody rate.
By Moody, I would say that I'm happy we are downgraded. At least we won't borrow anymore because we've borrowed so much. And if that borrowing that we did had created jobs, then maybe we would understand. But when we borrow to pay salaries, to pay all sorts of things, you understand? At the end of the day, we come back to square one. So I'm glad that we are downgraded. Then we will have to now use our heads as to how to create wealth, how to create jobs, how to get people out there, at least to fend for themselves. And at least the state will then have the opportunity to sit down and see how best to help this country move forward. We're talking about people out there not getting jobs and all the other things that go with it. So you just keep asking yourself, if you continue borrowing, then where are we going? So if we are not borrowing, we might now have to sit down. But I think that it's about time we sat, had our development plan. We still insist in the CPP, at least, that we believe in a development plan for this country. Then we will know our short-term goals, our medium-term goals, and our long-term goals. But in a country where it's like, at any given time, when something happens, we say, well, we'll do this. Just for that short period, and then that's the end of story. I don't think we're going to get anywhere.
Does it paint a gloomy picture for perhaps the medium to long-term future?
It does paint a gloomy picture. It paints a gloomy picture when you do not even know what you have, where to start from. We don't even know how much we're earning. We don't really know how much we're owing. We don't.
Oh, we know how much
You think you know? Yes, sir.
we know.
We don't know so many things.
Owing and borrowing is part and parcel of running a country. There is no country in the world that
not only that,
owe.
even your own business. That's
In your
how
own
you
business, but you don't go borrowing money and paying just to use.
And if you
to
look at
buy cars,
but
to buy
you don't
buses.
create extreme deficits
You
on your
must
budget.
create
But if
jobs.
you look at the infrastructure, you have to look at the
What
infrastructure.
infrastructure?
Look at the infrastructure. Look at my sister.
What have you done?
You and
No,
I,
for now.
You and I know, especially where we come from.
For now.
Anytime somebody has a very critical or type of some Kwalebu Konfanochi. Today, Tamale Teaching Hospital, Bolga is having the same thing.
Bolga?
Yes.
When?
Yes, it's been. Yes.
It's starting.
Yes.
You see, that's the difference
Yes.
between. That's the way that
It's
you
been
speak.
awarded.
You see, when
The
you
contract-
catch on, when you go around this country and you see billboards, you see billboards telling us about SHS. SHS has not been
The
provided.
billboards are where?
You can get one at the, I think, Jowulu Junction. You know, with the president
The
standing
one,
there.
Fiesta Royale, that place.
Fiesta Royale, that area there.
Maybe
With a
talking about the
billboard
Millennium
on-
Schools that
Not the Millennium Schools.
the
It's not
hardworking
200.
mayor.
It's the 200. The
Yes,
200.
But
have we
they've
seen-
secured some money
we
for it.
secured-
Come the
have
you.
we seen it?
No, it's
All
in
I'm
the
trying to
process.
say is that those kinds of promises are not on the ground. We haven't seen it.
My sister, we have to be judged after our
Look,
4 years.
what we have seen is that
Okay.
if monies are told, we just say we have given this kind of money, and we don't see the money. We don't see the job.
Government is doing very well in terms of the infrastructure, and you know very well that the roads. You go to your district, for instance. Look at the roads.
My district.
Yes.
The route in
Okay,
I
yes,
still
okay.
have
Okay,
that bad
now
road.